That right there, Morgan, is a lot more of a Batman guy instead of a Spider-Man guy.
I respect your takes, but personally, we all know Spider-Man's better. But when are we going back to your social Toronto issues?
Oh, we'll get to that right now. Doom, 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 doom. Today we will be speaking about something that she's spoken about a lot more in the Toronto scene, which is community housing. Well, what even is community housing in the first place? Well, it's simply just people who live in low-income houses due to the high rent. Some people do it. Some people live in low-income housing because of age, and some people live in community housing due to the fact that they're not the smartest financially. Well, when did this even become a thing? In the early 2000s, when rent started to raise, at least a little bit, people thought to themselves that the more young people have families and the more that young people are rebelling against things, that social community housing should start and make its way out for the help of the city. Who funds all this stuff? It's the city who funds all of it. Federal, government, um, municipal, all these people, all these organizations are the ones who fund and run community housing. People work here in community housing to make sure everything's afloat and nothing's out of line. But what's the problem with living in community housing? Well, there is an abundance of problems such as social issues, mental health, and dealing with other people's problems. Well, what are those problems, you may ask? Community homes, a lot of people who live there have told, well, research shows, obviously, that they deal with things like racism, ageism, sexism, homophobia, and amongst other social issues due to the fact that people who live there are all as miserable as can be, and they are all as stressed out due to the low mental health rates that come from community housing. People who live there aren't as happy with their life. People who live there don't get to see the things they wish they could see every day, which leads to them exerting all their anger and misery onto other people. With that being said, what's the point of living in community housing? People have to deal with racism. They have to deal with the stress of others and their own. They have to deal with poverty, and the worst thing they have to deal with is the outside world. If people find out you live in community housing, they usually tend to get disrespectful, call you names, make fun of you. And living in a community house is already enough stress with its own, with the discomfortability of a lot of it. But some people have to do what they have to do just to have a roof over their head, which some people don't realize. To be fair, one of the main things spoken about in Toronto right now is the housing crisis. And the fact that community houses themselves have a housing crisis because of how much people need to live in these areas and live in these community homes just so they can stay afloat is getting really bad. Some of them are even getting overpopulated to the point where they can't take more people in, which is leaving people in need out on the streets every day. In conclusion, a lot of people that live in community housing are rather the sweetest people you'll meet or the most sour fruit of the group, and not much you can really do about it. The fact of it is that the amount of community housing that there is around the world, or in Toronto, because we're speaking about Toronto solely here, there is a vast amount of community houses. But it doesn't stop the fact that it's going to keep getting overpopulated if Toronto doesn't fix their housing crisis and Canada doesn't fix their immigrant laws. Now, am I here to speak about immigrant laws? No, I'm not a politician. Please do not talk about that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for mentioning it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But what has community housing done? Community housing has gave many, many people of many age groups a second chance. People who didn't really get to see the brighter day in their heyday, or people who didn't even get a chance in the first place. It gives people an opportunity to live in under a roof and prioritize themselves while also living in a beautiful city, or some would say. To conclude all of this, I would like to say thank you for listening to my 4-minute spiel on the community housing, and come back next Thursday to see the next episode of Corday's Social Issues.
And finally, to top off the podcast today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about what is this guy doing?